Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And if you've been listening along, April is full of wonderful things. We have National Humor Month, Autism Awareness Month, Financial Literacy Month, and it's been a lot. But there's always observances. So I think it's great because it highlights different things. But this week, I don't even think we need to talk about, highlighting something specific because it's the whole thing that you've heard me talk about all along every week, why I love to promote women, why I want women to come on here and share their stories. And this week's is going to kind of, I think, put an exclamation point on that because we're going to be talking about an event that has come to Northeast PA that has brought together so many wonderful women. I think it uplifts women. It really harnesses the power of women. So my guest this week is Melissa Roberts. And she's the owner of the Ski Shack here in Northeast PA and also co-founded Wild Women NEPA, which took place in August of 2023, and then again a winter wellness expo in December of 2023. And you know me, I always like to say how I know my guest, and I did not know Melissa before joining in with Wild Women NEPA. They did a fantastic job of getting the word out. So I quickly learned about it and I wanted to share my laughter yoga. So I will tell you personally, before I get to Melissa, I thought the energy of the day was phenomenal. I mean, I think over 1,000 women, and I will tell you because I am human and I am very open about my frailties or my insecurities. I do women's nights of comedy, and it's so funny because I'll often get women going, "Is it just for women? Can I bring my husband?" And I'm like, "No." And I want to keep it just women as an audience, just women comedians, and I struggle a lot selling tickets. So when I saw this, I will freely admit, I was like, well, jeepers, they got over 1,000 people. What the hell? But I love that many women were so enthused and so excited to come out. So for me, leading laughter yoga, I felt the energy of like I think I had 70 participants. The woman I met who was doing the drum circle, I met women who were attending the laughter yoga, and that led to them joining me at one of my comedy shows. It led to me actually getting a gig leading laughter yoga for a workshop and in service for child caregivers. So the connections, the networking, and the just great warm and fuzzy feeling was fantastic. And then I was also there for the Winter Wellness Expo, and again met wonderful women, was able to network, had a little bit, we're indoors, a crappy day, but you know what, it wasn't crappy where we were because we were spreading really good energy and it was wonderful. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my guest today. It is Melissa Roberts. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, Janine. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I really sold the Wild Women NEPA there because it was fantastic, and I do want to spend time talking about that. But before we do, and I would like to share, excuse me, a little bit about yourself, because you're someone that I did not know before Wild Women NEPA, and I still don't really know much about you. But I'd love for my listeners to just get a sense of who you are and from a perspective of what you would like to share.
Absolutely. So my name is Melissa Roberts. I'm born and raised here in Northeast PA. I spent my childhoods a lot of times outside, so I'm a big outdoor enthusiast. I had a bit of a rock obsession when I was a kid, so I loved rocks and crystals, just spending time playing in the creek and building forts, riding my bike, and skiing. And so that was a big part of my childhood. And then when I became a teenager, and of course I knew everything, I ended up moving out of the area. So I ended up pursuing my degree in Japanese, of all things, at the University of Pittsburgh. So I lived in Japan for about a year, traveled around, spent some time in Thailand, Australia, and then came back to Pittsburgh to finish up my degree and was left with a bit of a conundrum. I was like, well, what do I do now? I kind of did all the things I wanted to do and really didn't know what my next steps were. So, I just told myself, I know that what I don't want to do, I don't want to work a 9 to 5 job behind a cubicle at a big company and just be a number. Well, that's what I ended up doing for the next 10 years of my life. So I ended up moving back to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, of all places, because that's where you use your Japanese degree, right? But believe it or not, I actually ended up getting a foothold in an international marketing position. And so that's where I spent 10 years of my career really doing things that I had never done before. And I always say it was like a soul sucking job. But at the same time, I came to a realization that I'm in this for a reason. I'm meant to learn something from this. And so that was a big teacher for me, and really where I really started to adopt my holistic wellness practice. So I started teaching or I started practicing yoga in 2008, became a regular practicer of yoga. In 2010, I became a certified holistic nutritionist. So really focusing on health and wellness, and really from a food and vitamin and supplement perspective, really trying to understand that part. And then back, gosh, what was it, 2017, I ended up having my son. So I ended up having my son in 2017. And then shortly afterwards, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic cancer. So she was only 53 at the time. She was very young, and she passed away 9 months later. So it was very quick. At the same time, my son, Matthew, who was only a few months old at the same time, had a rare seizure condition where he was having 40 to 50 seizures a day. It was bananas. So at the same time that my mother was passing, he was dealing with his seizure condition. And then when all of that passed, his seizures resolved, thankfully. And my mother did end up passing. I was left with the decision, what do I do now? So I was really able to draw on that 10 years of corporate marketing experience to then put me in a position where I could take over the family business. And that's what I've been doing for the past 6 years. So that's what brings me to Ski Shack. So we're actually third generation family owned business. And so I'm really proud of that. We actually just celebrated our 40th anniversary last year. And
wow, congratulations.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was a big accomplishment.
Yes.
And we actually ended up winning Small Business of the Year through the Scranton Chamber last year. So that was a really great accomplishment, and just testament to the customer service that we provide, and the passion that we have for the outdoors, and really just trying to honor my mom's legacy and keep the business going in her honor. So in 2022, I expanded Ski Shack business, actually. So we went from a seasonal ski shop to a year-round outdoor outfitters. So we have camping and hiking equipment, kayaks and paddle boards. And then I actually lead guided hikes, and I teach paddleboarding classes locally here at Harvey's Lake and some other places here in Northeast PA. So that's really kind of how I was able to take my passion of the outdoors and then couple that with the business acumen that I developed in my professional career to really now at this point in my career being, 40 years old and being like, wow, I love what I do. I truly love what I do. And, up to this point, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I'm just so thankful for what I'm doing right now. And it's so fantastic. And that's why in 2023, having that passion, having that, love of outdoors, I ended up reaching out to a good friend of mine, Kaylin Baus, who is a certified yoga instructor, sound healer, amazing human being, and just reached out to her randomly and was like, hey, I want to do something for women. I feel like we need to do something for women. At that time, it was the 5th year of my mom's passing. So that's where Wild Women kind of was born out of. And and it's just kind of where we are today, and really building on that. So the festival was incredibly successful. We had the Winter Expo, as you mentioned, and we're actually based off of that need of networking. We're actually developing a small business meetup series specifically for women entrepreneurs here in Northeast PA. So I'm just so excited for where this is kind of where I've come and then where everything is going forward. So it's just a really exciting time right now. And I'm just so happy to be here to tell everyone about it.
That's awesome. So, okay, you said a lot, which is wonderful because it's so much stuff that I love to hear. And I want to say a couple of points that I pull from that. Like, I love the fact that, isn't it interesting all the stuff that we say, okay, you didn't want to do and you end up doing. But I feel like, and I think women who, as we get older, that's just age, right? Wisdom comes with age, and it's true, even though it's a cliche. It does come with age, because I think no matter what we do, whether we wanted to do it in the moment at the time, we maybe can have a better sense later. We can reflect back. And okay, what did I learn? How can I use this in my life? Because I think everything serves us to some degree. Like the summer before I went for my senior year at Penn State, when I came home for the summer, I worked a temp job at a meat packing plant. Okay. Now, did I want to do that? No. Was I being a good, little human at the time? Like, okay, mom and dad, I will get a job for the summer. This is what the temp agency said they have, and I took it, right? Did I want to be packing bloody liver and pulling fat out of veal? Because yes, that's what I did. Disgusting, right? But I did it, and I learned from the women who were there, the women who could barely afford childcare, the women who said, you're fortunate to be able to go back to college, but we can pull from everything. And I think we build on it. And I think that's great. I want to ask you before we start talking about Wild Women NEPA, which is fantastic. Could you tell me a little bit about, you talked about how much you love the outdoors, and I am with you there. Forest therapy and forest bathing. I just learned those words only, excuse me, a few years ago, but it is so true. The feeling like I'm an outdoor person and I will go out for walks and runs, but there's something so different from when I run. Uh, well, I almost get killed because people don't stop in crosswalks. But besides that fact, when I go for a walk or run at the state park, it is so different because, and not, I never thought years ago that I'd be this person, but here I am now. It is meditative. It's almost like the earth giving you a hug. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but the moss on the floor, the roots, the everything feels so peaceful. It is amazing. And I think more people should take advantage of that. But I want to ask you about your travels, only because for my own personal selfish reasons, I want to know, but I think listeners would want to know too. What was your outdoor experience there? Because I never really thought of Japan as having forests until I heard different things, and there's a lot of forest in Japan.
Yes.
What was your experience traveling outdoors there, Thailand, Australia? Anything that stands out that you could share with us?
Oh, it was a different world in a lot of ways. Just the colors, the wildlife, the greenery, everything is just different. So you're just taking it all in, and it's so different. I loved hiking in Japan. Where I lived, it was very mountainous. So there was a lot of hiking trails. And so I remember my friend taking me up this hiking path, and I looked right over my shoulder, and right in my face was a wild boar, because in where we lived, there was wild boar everywhere. So they would like walk the streets. You would see them like walking up the streams. And so there was like a wild boar right in my face. So that was the first time, because we don't have those around here in Northeast PA. So that was new. That was definitely something different. But yeah, I remember just the water there, the waterfalls, just being this turquoise color, these big, giant, ancient trees where there'd be several people, hugging around them. There was this one town in Japan called Nara that had wild deer roaming all around the town. So they believed that Buddha was transported to Nara, the old ancient capital of Japan, on a deer. So they were sacred. And so they allowed them. So you go everywhere and they're just roaming the streets. And so, it's kind of bringing the inside, the outdoors into the downtown area. So it was just really interesting to see. They did a lot more festivals, I would say there, really celebrating the seasons, celebrating the local agriculture and what fruits and vegetables were in season at the time. So that was something that was very much, I think, a different cultural aspect that I noticed when I was there. So it's seeing all of that. It's just, there's nothing like it. It was such an amazing experience. I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to do it while I did, because I don't think now at this time in my life, I would have that freedom to just be like, oh, I'm going to get up and go to Thailand for a month.
Yeah. How about, is there anything that you can recall, like Australia? My gosh, my friend's daughter got to go there from her Susquehanna University. It was part of she's like in the environmental field. Amazing, like just some of the pictures she shared, but like talk about, like, I actually would be a little scared because I've read different things about what big giant spiders and all that kind of stuff. But did you get to explore much of the outdoors in Australia?
So it was more where I was based at. I was staying with friends of mine for a couple weeks. They lived in the West Coast, called Perth. So we did a lot more beaches, things like that. But there was this one amazing experience where we ended up going to this river. We ended up getting a pizza and ended up going and sitting on this bench on this dock. And my friends took it and said, this is one of my favorite places. And we sat on this river, and all of a sudden we just see this splashing. And we're like, what is that? Dolphins, freshwater dolphins. Didn't even know it was a thing. And we're just sitting there in this river, and we're watching because the ocean was right there with some brackish water, and there were just dolphins right there. So that was, to me, was just absolutely amazing. The amount of shells that I would get on the beach, the colors was like nothing I had ever seen. Just the vibrancy, and yes, and the fear definitely gets put into you from the locals of the snakes and the spiders and all those creepy crawlies. So yeah, so you're always sort of on guard. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I love Hawaii so much, is because there's no snakes there. So like when you talk about, just that feeling of like a hug, right? Like just like that feeling of the outdoors. Like when I went to Maui, that was like of all the outdoor places, that just to me felt like love. And somebody actually told me that Maui's been called the heart chakra of the world. So that would totally make sense, because for me, I just felt so safe there. The second you get off the plane, you just smell the plumeria in the air, and you have the giant Mount Haleakala, the volcano, which you can see from every angle, bamboo forests, black sand beaches. I mean, for me, that is heaven on earth. If I could spend my time anywhere all the time, that would probably be Maui. Of all the places I've traveled, it just the diversity of it. You have beaches, you have lush jungles, you have forests, you actually have snow. So it's really amazing where you can kind of have everything in one spot.
Wow, that does. I mean, that's on my list. I have not been, but I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anyone come back from Hawaii and be like, "Oh, that was not what or that was a bust." You know what I mean? Like everyone seems to say it's beautiful, and their pictures seem to show like it is amazing. I'm sure there's nothing like being there though, but it sounds absolutely beautiful. Um, so the outdoors, clearly the outdoors are important to you. Was that obviously you said growing up, it was something that was always something you were drawn to, as a kid playing. How would you say it's evolved? And would you say that, launching Wild Women NEPA gave you an opportunity to even like tap into that passion and share it with other women?
Absolutely. And it's really because of that powerful therapeutic nature that you spoke of. Having witnessed that firsthand and having just experienced that, it's something that I just want to share with everyone. And so for me, a little personally, so I have two children. I have my first son that I mentioned, Matthew, who had that seizure condition, and then I have my second son, Ethan. So he's 4 years old right now, so he's just a few years younger than Matthew. And so after Ethan was born, I developed postpartum depression. And so that was really, really a tough time for me, because that was in February of 2020, right before COVID happened.
Mm.
So then all of a sudden, I can't go to yoga. That was such a lifeline for me, being in that healing space. All of a sudden, all the yoga studios are shut down, right? I couldn't go, there wasn't group therapy. There was nothing available at that time. So for me, the outdoors was a huge outlet. That is really what saved me. Right where I live here, I'm about an hour, about a mile and a half away from Francis Slocum State Park. So it was really easy for me to just get in my car and go for a hike or get on my paddleboard. And that was really, powerful for me to be able to get that outlet, to have that time in nature. I was able to heal and recover from that. And coming out of it, that's what really propelled me, I think, as one of the things with Wild Women, especially having women specifically, because having gone through that, having seen the lack of resources, having experienced that, having, they always say it takes a village to raise kids. Well, there was no village. My mom had passed. I have no help. So it's just me and my husband. And it was, and so my second son, he ended up with a brain condition called a Chiari malformation. So just actually 2 weeks before Wild Women, he ended up having brain surgery down in Philadelphia. So he has, both my children have special needs. So it's a lot of stress. There's a lot of medical care that they require. There's a lot of doctor's appointments, medical assistants, IEPs. It's just a lot of stress. And so as women, a lot of times, like, we take on a lot of that. My husband's fantastic. He does help a lot. But let's face it, as women, we end up doing the lion's share of it, especially when kids are young. I mean, men can't breastfeed the babies. There's so much they can't carry and birth the baby. So we as women, we take on a lot of that physical toll as well. So for me, seeing that and having come out of that, I'm like, how can I help other women who may be going through the same things that I am? Or in different ways, and just how can I help share that healing power of nature with other women? So I teach paddleboarding classes, and that's a big thing that I love to do aside from the hiking. Have you tried paddleboarding before?
I have not. I worry I don't have the core strength for it. And now that I'm getting like, let's say more like the Pillsbury Doughboy, I really worry, but I would like to try it. Honestly, I do because every time I see people do it, I just love the look of it because I love kayaking, but I just always wonder, do I have enough balance and core strength? Those are my concerns.
But honestly, and that's why paddleboarding is so great, because when I was, after I had my first son, I had no core. My kids were almost 10 pounds apiece. So my body was completely destroyed, and I was not medically allowed to pick up more than 25 pounds. So my kayak could no longer pick that up. And I had no core at all. And I'm not the kind of person, I'm not a gym person. I'm very open about that. I cannot run on a treadmill. That to me is just no fun at all. So with paddleboarding, it's lightweight. And the best part is you can start sitting or kneeling. You don't have to stand up right away. A lot of people, they think, oh gosh, I'm going to fall right in. You can sit or kneel, and you're still getting all the same benefits, because what the thing is with paddleboarding, it's a high intensity core workout, or it could be a very low intensity core workout. It's all body. And you could either go as hard as you want if you're very athletic and you want to push yourself, challenge your balance and coordination. Or if you're like me, my favorite thing to do is really lay down and take a nap. That's what I tell people all the time, because you can really do anything. If I tell people, if you've kayaked before, you're kind of paddling there and things are good. But after a while, I kind of start shifting in my seat. My back gets sweaty. I want to move around. I don't know, maybe that's the ADD in me. But with a paddleboard, I can sit, I can kneel, I can stand, I can do yoga, and I can lay down and take a nap. It gives me that versatility to do so many different things, and based off of what my body feels like it needs that day. So if I need to just relax and just maybe meditate or read a book, I can do that. And so it's just, to me, it's so versatile. And it really, from having gone to having my children where I had no core strength, my body was completely out of shape. I had to lose like 50 pounds. And now here I am, 40. I'm in better shape now than I was when I was in high school. It's bananas, because I'm just like, wow, like I look at my arms like, wow, I'm jacked. And it's just because I'm like, wow, paddling along. Oh, what kind of flower is that? What kind of bird is that? And I'm just completely oblivious. But at the same time, I'm getting an amazing workout, and I'm experiencing the full therapeutic benefits of being in nature. So it's like, it's a triple whammy. It's amazing. You're getting all those things at once.
Yeah, that's an amazing workout. Okay, so I have to say, I have no children, so my flab is completely my own. That's why it's called Cookie Babies. I eat too many cookies and whatnot. And I cannot imagine, honestly, I'm amazed when people do the yoga on the because I can't at the paddleboard, because I'm like, wow, that takes serious balance. Now, I will say, I think, I'm joking now, but I do believe we can always build up to certain things. I mean, I remember when I started running and watching people doing Steamtown Marathon, and I said, this is amazing. I could never do that. And now I've run 2 marathons. So I'm proud to say that you can, you know what I mean? We can make these changes. So it'll be my goal to get on a paddleboard this summer, because I love kayaking. I love looking at the birds. That is one of my most peaceful places, honestly. When I am aggravated about technology or people or anything, it's instant soothing and healing. I do want to follow up to something you said that I think is so important, because I think it's so relatable. When the pandemic hit, and I can only imagine it being in your shoes, having lost your mom, you're having postpartum depression, that's hard enough on a regular day, right? So then the world shuts down. I think so many people, and we're seeing now, I help NAMI as one of my marketing clients. So I'm really, in tune with, or like try to be in tune with learning about, mental health issues. We have so many more mental health issues now after the pandemic, because we were disconnected from one another, and, just different things happen. But to your point, I think one thing that did come out of it at the time, people were like, they couldn't go to their gyms, but they could go outside. And I think that was a wonderful resource. Maybe not everyone took advantage of, but I do think some people did, and who may not have done it before. In fact, it's funny. I'll go to my bitter place for a minute. I remember I was like, damn, the parks were all crowded. And I'm like, where were these people months ago? I'm like, now, because I personally like to be there with trees and nature, like not like 50 other people. So I remember, though, the state park on top of Music Mountain, the Nancy and Dick Eel Preserve, the parking lot was packed. But it was wonderful that people found the nature could serve them when all this other stuff was closed. And hopefully, I mean, that is one thing, it's still there for us all the time to take advantage of.
Absolutely. And that was a big reason for why I decided to expand my business into a year-round operation, was because during that time, the outdoor industry exploded. People were going outside more than ever. And I noticed that locally, I couldn't find the products that I used to go outside. I was having to either drive down to Conshohocken down in Philadelphia for an REI or buy stuff online. So that was a big part of it. But also, too, it's not about selling stuff. My mom would always say that we don't sell products, we sell customer service. And I like to honor her and take that a step further and say it's all about the customer experience, because people, especially young people, you hear like, they don't want stuff, they want experiences. And the problem is, what I've seen is that people know that nature is healing, but they just don't know maybe where to go or where to park or what to take with them or what trails to take. And so that's why this whole event and really workshop driven portion of my business is really, taking hold, is because it's about providing that education so that people can enjoy the outdoors safely, right? I mean, the 7 Tubs, I grew up in Bear Creek. So 7 Tubs was something that I hiked all the time. They ended up having to close it down how many times? Because of trash, because of, people just not using the leave no trace principles, or at least even being aware of them. So it's really about education and really because I feel that when people are educated, they have more fun, right? So like when you know what you're doing, when you know what you're dealing with, you can relax a little bit and really have fun outside. And that's really what it's all about. And really, and you hit on it, it's the togetherness of it, right? When we go out by ourselves, there's in solitude in nature, there's definitely a healing, aspect to that. But when you do it with other people, when you're with other people, because we're socially connected beings. I think we all learned that in the pandemic. Like we can't be alone, right? Because, thousands and thousands of years ago, if you were alone, that meant you were on your own in the woods. A tiger or a bear was going to get you, right? You needed the safety of people and your tribe, and we need each other. We're just connected that way. We're neurologically connected and wired in that way. So when that happened and we were all of a sudden on our own, I think that's where a lot of the mental health issues really started to increase, as you mentioned, especially here in Northeast PA. So just seeing the lack of mental health services here, seeing certain facilities closing, and also seeing what's available outside of this area as well. A lot of times, and sometimes it's Pennsylvania and some of the way that they kind of do things with insurance and whatnot, but there are certain outside therapies like music therapy that could be very healing for people, but from an insurance perspective, it's not considered something that is covered. But we know that sound is healing. We know there is scientific research that backs up, and other states do agree and they cover it. So it's difficult. And that's the other reason for bringing the Wild Women is how can we look at all these different holistic wellness and healing modalities, yoga, meditation, sound healing, laugh yoga, drumming, all of these things that we know, the somatic embodiment and moving, and all of these things are so important. But a doctor's not going to write you a prescription for this when you go and say, hey, you know what, I'm feeling depressed, or, I'm having a lot of pain in my body, or, I'm dealing with the death of a loved one. I'm having some grief. I don't know how to deal with it. Well, here, I'll give you a prescription for this. Rather than saying, hey, maybe try moving your body, try sound healing, try yoga, because there's no money in them for it, right? So bringing these other modalities to women who are looking for them, who need them. And that's where, when you said 1,000 women, where'd they all come from? I just felt it inside of me because I needed it. That's where it all came from, because I needed the healing. I wanted this. It was kind of a selfish thing, right? I was like, hey, I would love to be able to do all these things in one day, right? Because a lot of amazing women are offering these as workshops, but as a mom, and maybe just fiscally, it's not possible, because sometimes a workshop can be $35 to $50 for 1 2-hour workshop. So by making the cost low, by saying, hey, for under $50 here, you get a whole day where now you can try from dozens of different workshops, dozens of different modalities to see what works for you. And then here you are trying it with hundreds, if not close to 1,000 other women. So you've had this safe place where you're not feeling like, oh, I'm just the awkward person showing up here. Am I going to be the only person there? It really takes away all those barriers of fear of trying something new, and gives you that opportunity. And then when you're opened up and you're relaxed and you're in this natural environment, that's where all the magic happens, right? That's when you're meeting people and you're having these amazing connections. I heard from so many women, attendees, vendors, facilitators, that just like, what was that? That energy that was there, and or they would just say, I made some of the best professional connections of my career here, or this really, was brought to tears by this one woman. She was like, I really wasn't going to come today. It was a really tough day. And she had actually problems finding the place, and then got really upset. She wrote us this angry email how it was so hard for her to find the place. And then shortly after, she wrote another email and said, disregard that. I found the place. I met up with a few women. They took me under their wing. I had such an amazing day. It was so transformative. It was exactly what I needed. And so it shows you, like you talk about, like just that sometimes we're in that day-to-day mind space of we're in that stress and everything. But when you take that time to get out of that, to really implement self-care, but when you do it in a safe space with other women, it's like I said, it's magical. It's transformative. And it's more than I could have ever hoped for.
Yeah. And it truly was. And I should say, I joked about like, I do like connecting with nature on my own, but I always joke, I actually love connecting with people. It's just when you run into people who aren't as nice or whatever, but I do love connecting with people because I think we all do need that. And in fact, I think it was last May, the US Surgeon General had released a report on the danger of isolation, and that isolation could be, the damages to our health and wellness could be as severe as smoking, obesity, because we need to be, especially the elderly population, but I mean, all of us need connection and we need to be with people. And, the event, Wild Women NEPA, was that. I mean, I had not had that opportunity to really do laughter yoga in person in a while because I had done it on my Facebook, during the pandemic and everything. And to have 70 women in front of me, with me, and us doing it together, you can't get that power, even though I do believe, in times when you can't be together, use whatever means you can online, whatever it is. But there is nothing like feeling the energy of being right next to someone physically. And so that was, and I should say, Wild Women NEPA was held at Lazy Brook Park in Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania, and it will be again this coming year. So in fact, my workshop location was right with the stream behind me, and it was wonderful. And it's so funny. And we talk about that woman is a perfect example because I think when I talk about laughter and humor and the value, and I talk about positivity, and we have these Debbie Downers and negative Neds, and when I used to talk about that, I used to talk about it externally, like they're other people, but I think they're us, they're all of us, right? We have moments when we become that person. She was upset, but then she was transformed. So when I got there, I'm like, oh sure, my workshop's across the bridge. No one's going to cross the bridge. They're not even going to know I'm here. And what do you know? As soon as you guys had your opening and women were going this way and that way, it was like literally like a herd. Like they just coming across the bridge, and I'm like, oh, they are coming. They are going to find me. And again, we all have those moments. I think. I mean, if you don't, I'm good for you, but I think it's human for us to have those moments. But let's talk a little bit about. So it was an amazing day, and anything you want to say about that? Because I wanted to start talking about this was so wonderful. You're continuing this with different workshops here and there, but again, a second Wild Women NEPA at Lazy Brook. So wherever you want to pick up, because it was an incredible success.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was something that we sort of joked about initially, because just putting it out there, right? Nothing like this had ever been done before in Northeast PA. So Kaylin and I were sort of joking around, well, hey, as long as we cover our costs and, even if just our friends show up, hey, we'll have a good time, right? That was sort of our expectation. We had no idea that this many women were going to show up. I kind of had that feeling. That's kind of why I didn't begin with, but to see that happen. And like you said, like the herds of women, we're all standing there at the gates and we're just seeing the cars lined up, and we're just like, wow, this is happening. And it was surreal. It really was truly surreal. And the energy from that day, just watching women belly dancing and chanting and screaming and laughing, and it was unbelievable. And so that's where, as soon as it happened, we're like, well, when are we doing this again? Right? We got to do this again. Absolutely. And so, we had definitely planned on doing another summer festival. But we were actually, in the meantime, we were reached out to by the JCC in Kingston, and they had reached out to us because one of the women on their board there, Paula, had attended the festival and was like, I love this. How can we bring this here? So that was kind of where the Winter Expo came into play, because we figured, I just know personally myself, right before the holidays, things are just crazy. You're shopping and wrapping and baking cookies and running around and cleaning and all that. So we really purposely had that right before the holidays as a way for women to reset, take time to really implement some self-care. And I always keep saying self-care, it's like hokey, right? Oh, self-care, self-care. But it's so important, because that was one of the things that, with when I was coming out of postpartum depression, that was the one thing they just keep hammering about: self-care, self-care, self-care. The problem is that as women, whether you're a mom, whether you're a caretaker, whatever your life circumstances, oftentimes we don't know who we are. So when the time does come where I have time to actually take care of myself, I'm like, what does myself want? What do I like? Who am I? So it's so oftentimes become enmeshed with either our partners or our children, our careers, right? We use so much of that to identify ourselves that we lose sight of what actually brings us true joy and contentment. And so that's where I think a lot of these workshops, what makes Wild Women so different is, there's these vendors and all this kind of stuff. And you can find different like craft shows and different things like that in the area, which is great. But what makes a Wild Women event so different is the workshops. And we heard that loud and clear from all the surveys that we did after the event: workshops, workshops, workshops. Because that's just, it's great to sit and listen. I've gone in my professional career, I went to so many trade shows and conferences where you're listening to keynote speakers, and this is all great, and you feel rah, and you have all this awesome, you feel good coming out of it. But it's almost like, wow, there's another thing on my to-do list, or now here's another book I have to read. But with these workshops, you're given tangible actions, things that you can do on a daily basis. And now you have the tools and resources to take care of yourself. Because that's what I really think of self-care is. Oftentimes, in the fairy tales that were told as young girls, right? The knight in shining armor is going to come and whisk you away and make everything okay. I realized there is no knight in shining armor. No one's going to come and save you. You have to save yourself. You are in control of your own destiny, of your mind, of your body, and you have the ability to make those choices. But sometimes people don't know what the choices are, right? So being able to empower women, giving them opportunity to be aware of this, connecting them with other women, and giving them those tools so that they can resource themselves. So that's where I kind of look at it a little bit differently. And really, it's empowering women. It's really about empowering each other. And from a business perspective, because it's sort of like there's two prongs. There's the attendees and the workshops, and then there's the vendor piece of it, the women-owned businesses, the practitioners, the artisans that are just doing amazing work in our community. So as a woman-owned business myself, oftentimes I'm looking to have connection and business meetups. And Janine, that's actually where you and I had met last, was at a women's networking luncheon in Lackawanna County. And sort of my comment to you at that time was, this is my past life, right? I'm used to the board meetings and the trade shows and the business suits and the briefcases and all that. But in my new role in this outdoor business, I sort of just dress casually. I just wear like day-to-day clothes that I'd be able to go for a hike in or something like that. So sometimes I go to these events now and I feel like a little bit of a fish out of water. I know that they're important because networking, professional development, that's always important in your career. But I go to these events sometimes and I'm just like, well, these people are with Geisinger, they're with a big bank, or, and here I am, just this little business. And so I see these amazing vendors through Wild Women NEPA that I've been able to connect with. And I'm just like, hey, how can we all learn from each other? How can we create this business, this women's networking business meeting for smaller women-owned businesses, entrepreneurs, holistic practitioners, event planners, people that are maybe they're doing a side hustle and they have a passion. Maybe they love making candles, or they love, making witchy items. And it's something they have an Etsy store and they're trying to do this. They're trying to get this side hustle going. This is what they really want to do. Or maybe they're a healer. They're really great at what they do. They're a sound healer. They're a Reiki practitioner, but they're not really great at marketing themselves. They don't have that business background. Didn't have the privilege of working 10 years behind a cubicle like I did to build that up. but there are some amazing women in our community that have some amazing skill sets. We're doing our first business meetup. So we decided to do this business meetup series. It's a monthly business meetup. This woman, her name is Jamie Hearn. I've worked with her. She was through Wild Women is where I met her. She's an attorney by day, podcast host, best-selling author by night. And it's like, well, hey, let's have a Q&A so women can ask questions about copyrights and trademarks because maybe they feel a little intimidated about paying a couple $100 and going to a stuffy lawyer's office and asking questions. So it's how can we make these business opportunities more approachable and connecting these business owners in a way that we can learn from each other. Oftentimes, women-owned businesses, we have a tendency to maybe criticize, right? Oh, look what she's doing over there. Oh, and then we're competing, right? Like, oh, she's doing basically what I'm doing, right? Criticizing and competing. But with Wild Women, we flip it around, right? It's not about criticizing and competing. It's about celebrating and collaborating. So it's saying, hey, you know what? I love what you do. I want to work with you. I want to celebrate and tell everybody what you're doing because I think it's pretty freaking cool. And I want to work with you because I feel like we can really make each other stronger. So that's what Wild Women has really sort of evolved into from the business side of things, really working with the business, the women-owned businesses and the vendors that we work with. And that's something that I just see a huge opportunity for because that was the whole thing with Wild Women. When we come together, that's when the magic happens, right? When we come together, we heal collectively. And when we come together professionally, there's so much in so many ways that we can grow. And that's where I hope that Wild Women can really be that catalyst and that community center for women to empower each other.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I want to say it was funny. You mentioned we ran into each other, and it's like, that's one thing. Like, I love the opportunity you're creating. Like you're saying, it's different from other networking opportunities. But one thing I have learned, and I will credit an EPA network, is they do like coffees, they do evenings. So they try to make it accessible for everyone. But they really have me thinking differently about networking. And when people hear that word, a lot of times they feel intimidated. And all it really means is talking, right? Connecting and sharing what you do, maybe what you're looking for. Hey, do you know anybody who this or that? And then talking about it. And you and I, it was great opportunity. And it's a great example of like networking everywhere. I believe we should, but not in a stressful or pressure way, but just talking because it's connecting. You know, we talked and we were in the parking garage. We had just left the event. And it's like, oh gosh, didn't get a chance to talk to you in there. And you gave me some really great tips. You gave me names of people to reach out to, some ideas. And we can all do that. And women can definitely do that for one another. And I do see that happening more and more. And I love it. And I think what these events you're doing provide an even better opportunity and more opportunity. So you have the monthly workshops. So what's the best place? And then I want to talk about this year's summer festival. What's the best place for women to stay up to date with what's going on so they can go, ooh, that sounds like an interesting event. I want to attend it. And are they in person, online? Share just a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So our events are pretty much in person. The best way to find out about them would be to go on our either Facebook or Instagram. Our handle is Wild Women NEPA. It's all one word. Or you could visit our website at wildwomennepa.com. And we post a lot just on social media about like the different events that we have going on. So we do also like little workshops throughout the year as well. So we have an event coming up on May 19th where it'll be a women's mushroom hike. So women who are, curious about mushrooms and want to learn more about that, we'll have Danielle Bennett, who I originally met through Wild Women NEPA at the festival, who will be doing a hike there. So that's like really different fun events, really trying nature-based events. You can also check out my website, skishacksports.com, and our Facebook and Instagram, Ski Shack Sports as well, because with Ski Shack, I do a lot of different outdoor programming. So a lot of it is all genders. So if it's something that you are interested in as well, we do separate programming there as well. So that would be the places to find us.
That's awesome. That I did see that you did do a hike before, I think, featuring mushrooms around that. And I think that's so interesting. I was listening to a podcast that featured a woman who, like, I guess she's become like an influencer or whatever you want to call her on Instagram, talking about foraging. And I just think that's so interesting. But I think it is important too to have the knowledge, right? So you're not just popping something into your mouth and then, possibly keeling over, because some things can be toxic, right? So it's important to be led and guided by someone who knows and has that knowledge base. But I think that's really interesting. And I think, again, another opportunity for people to go outside, which I'm telling you, like, I will always praise nature therapy. Like, for me, honestly, and this is not meant to denigrate whatever anyone else celebrates, but for me, it is kind of like my church. I always say that because it's like, it's just that Easter Sunday, I got to go for a hike, and that was where I feel at peace, always, looking at the trees, like hearing the crunch underneath your feet. It's just the place to really feel just soothed. I think soothed is the best way. So let's talk about right now your planning. So May 19th, I will definitely put that in the show notes, all those links. So for women to check it out, the hikes, and to watch ongoing what's going on. But the big festival will be in August, the second Wild Women NEPA Summer Festival. So right now you are still, I believe, accepting vendors and presenters, and women can purchase their tickets. Tell me a little bit about that as far as how long people have, what are deadlines, and what are your hopes for this year? Like women who went last year. I mean, I'll be honest with you, that was amazing. So what can people expect this year too?
Yeah, it's a hard one to top, absolutely. So we will be having our second annual festival. The date is Sunday, August 25th, and it'll be at Lazy Brook Park again in Tunkhannock. And so right now we are accepting applications for vendors and workshop facilitators. That's until the end of April. So you have until the end of the month to do that. We do have links available on our website and on our social media pages. And then tickets are on sale now. So right now we have early bird pricing. So the month of April, tickets are $40. It's a fantastic value. And then prices will go up to $45, and then they'll be $55 at the gate. So make sure that you get your tickets early. If it's something you definitely think you're going to attend, buy early to save money. And the reason and one of the things that we're really excited about, I mentioned a little earlier, we did a survey at the end of the festival, and we got over 200 responses from attendees and vendors, which was awesome. So we got a lot of feedback, and we really took that into account. We really listened hard to what women liked, what they didn't like. So I'm happy to say we will have more bathrooms this year. We will have better bathrooms, flushable bathrooms. Like I got like luxury bathrooms for the ladies, because I was like, I just know me personally, I am not a porta potty gal. I'd go behind a tree first before. So I made sure we have beautiful bathrooms for the ladies this year. And also we're gonna have more food vendors. That was the other thing, because we didn't expect so many women, especially in that last week. We had just hundreds of women just sign up at the last minute, and because the weather was gorgeous too, right? It was a beautiful day. So we do have more food vendors signed up. So we made sure that we have a lot more food available for ladies, so they're not waiting in line. Another thing we mentioned earlier, that workshops were number one, right? So we want our workshops. So workshops are actually be a little bit longer. So we extended the hour of the festival. So the festival will be an hour longer. It starts at 10 a.m. and it'll go until 7 p.m. Workshops will be an hour in length, and then there'll be a 15-minute break between each workshop. So if you attend the festival from start until finish, you'll have access to 7 different hour workshops during the day. So that's just, like I said, a really great value, a great opportunity to try some different things. I'm super excited. We have a lot of, if you've enjoyed any of the workshops from last year, some of the best ones that we heard, obviously laugh yoga was one of the most commented on. People loved Shattered, which I don't know if you heard that one. It was the screaming one.
Oh man, I need to go to that this year. I need to do that every day, actually.
So yeah, that one got a lot of really great buzz. You could actually, so they were in the same pavilion that you were on the far end of the park, but you could hear all of a sudden just screaming, and women would just be like, all of a sudden you would just be like screaming and then just break down bawling and crying. It was just amazing to see that emotional release. So we got a lot of feedback. So Candace will be back doing Shattered. So we're super excited about that. We have some new workshops. So Sabrina, who did the meditations and emotion at the Winter Wellness Expo, she'll be with us at the Summer Festival. She's also bringing trampolines. So she's bringing about 25 trampolines. We're gonna have a trampoline class. I'm excited about that. We're going to do a lot more hikes and a lot more like guided nature walks. So Danielle, as I mentioned earlier, she's going to do a mushroom themed one. I'll be doing the grounding with Gaia, sort of the tree based nature exercise. We have a few other women who will be doing forest bathing and just more of the hiking 101. So we'll have a lot more hiking will be a part of the event this year. So those are some of the changes, some of the things that we're really looking, I think they're going to really make the festival even better this year. And yeah, and already the feedback has been phenomenal. We posted out the event at the end of February, and here we are about 2 months later. We have over 2,000 people interested in the event, have done no marketing, haven't paid no paid advertising at this point. And so it just shows, I think, just from the word of mouth, people having experienced it last year, knowing that if it's anything like last year, it's going to be even better. Like, sign me up, definitely want to be a part of this. And then just the word of mouth, just getting it out there, people just telling their friends, people who weren't able to make it last year. I think it's going to be even more of a success this year, just based on what we're seeing.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I don't know how I missed that Shattered. I'm gonna have to look for that this year. Yeah. Yeah, it was, I mean, I know even the like belly dancing, I enjoyed like just observing from afar because there was a ton of women that got involved in that, and that looked like a lot of fun. I know there was hula hooping last year and all kinds of wonderful things that, and I think I know a couple of the comments from mine doing laughter yoga. This one woman said she used like a serious during the week. Her business self is just really serious. And I think she had said something like, yeah, my husband said, yeah, you need that. You need to relax. You need to go do something for yourself. And so, like, I know after mine left, she said she felt relaxed because she's like, this is so not me, but yet I feel I needed it. And there was all those kinds of comments about like the whole, day, just people needing that. And I think it'll be wonderful, and you touched on a point earlier, like, and I've often touched upon this with my guests about women being the caregivers. So, you know, to not know, and to your point of maybe not knowing what you want for self-care, this is the perfect kind of buffet or smorgasbord, we could say, of trying. You don't know if you like it, but that's okay, because this is your opportunity to really sample things and do something you're like, oh, I really like that. I want to do more somatic embodiment, or I want to do more yoga or more hikes or whatever. It's a great time to sample it, and none of it's going to do any harm. It's only going to do good for you. I mean, the setting alone, the connection, that alone, I think just makes you feel good. So I think it's going to be another fantastic opportunity for women. As we begin to wrap up here, is there anything else? Because I feel like we touched on a lot.
Yeah.
I do. I think people got a lot of good stuff and value out of this podcast, but at least I hope they do. I know I did with this conversation. Is there anything else you'd want to touch upon in closing? And I mean, I will put all that information in the show notes so people can check out the websites, check you out on social media, Ski Shack and Wild Women NEPA. But is there anything in closing, any takeaways that you had from doing this, or any aha moments, or just words to live by? Anything, not that I'm putting too much pressure on you, anything that we need to know that we can live by? You know what I'm saying? Whatever you'd like to share in closing is what I'm really trying to say, but I like to be verbose about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I might have touched on it a few times, but just it's really that connection, right? It's feeling connected. It's with the festival, right? You're connected with so many other people, right? It's connecting yourself and putting yourself out there. But really, it's the connection with other people, it's the connection with nature, and it's the connection with ourselves. Right. And I think that's really what it is. It's when you talk about going back to that self-care and all of that, it's connecting with ourselves is so important. So, and that's what I think is what you really get out of a lot of these workshops and a lot of these events, is that we really try to provide you insights and resources to take care of yourself, to know what you need, to connect with your higher self, with what having that feeling of purpose. Right. And you talk about kind of getting older, right? That's having lost my mom at a young age. That's what I start to think about now. What is my purpose? Am I living my purpose here? What is the legacy that I leave behind? What will people say about me? And so that's really what drives me, and to really find my true purpose and connecting with everything that's true to me. No longer at this point in my life am I trying to, look a certain way or behave a certain way or do things and people please because it's the way society wants me to look or what people expect from me. I lived that. I did that for decades, right? At this stage in my life, it's about living to my true purpose, being true to myself, connecting to myself. Because when I do that and I'm connected with nature and around me, then I can connect with other people. And so that's kind of like where I kind of view it as, kind of start with yourself, then get out in nature. And then once you get with other people, it's just, like I said, it's that it amplifies all those things. And so, and ever start, don't feel overwhelmed by it. If being outside in nature with a bunch of people is overwhelming, just start with yourself. Just go out for a walk. Like you said, just take those steps and do it safely, and if you don't know where to go, or if you have any questions, always reach out to me. If you reach out to Ski Shack or to Wild Women NEPA, it's me. So if you have any questions, I'm always happy to recommend my favorite trails or what to bring along or any questions that you may have. Like I said, we have plenty of events to enable you to find opportunities to meet others if that is what you're looking to do. But yeah, I would say just encouraging women to really focusing on yourselves in a non-selfish way, right? In a very just connecting with ourselves and connecting with nature, I think is very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I think it's so true. I can definitely say, I'm glad you said that it can seem overwhelming because I know there are probably a lot of people, and social media is you see a lot of stuff. A lot of it is healthier and a lot of it is not healthier, but like sometimes you'll see people who are clearly, based on what they're saying, they're hurt maybe, and so maybe they're not looking to connect with people because they don't have the best impression of people. But so I like what you said, it can be overwhelming because it can be. Maybe for some women they might like, oh geez, I don't want to be with 1,000 women, I don't want to be this or I don't want to be that. But I think to your point, starting with yourself, because I think the outdoors, give it a try. I know a lot of people who are like, well, I don't like the bugs, I don't like the heat, I don't like this or that, but I think it's worth it if people like pushing past maybe their discomfort, I guess, like with anything,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's this particular event or with anything, push past your discomfort and just see what you can gain. And if you don't like it, go, you can maybe try a workshop, maybe go home if it's too much, but to just push past the discomfort because there's so much there to try and there's so much to be gained and the feeling. And I will say this as someone who I struggle with, I say introvert, extrovert, ambivert, whatever, do-overt, whatever it is. There are, as I mentioned, we can all be Debbie Downers at times, and that we can also all be in a place where we don't want to do something. And we also, a lot of times, we don't want to do something that we know is good for us, but pushing past that, I think that happens a lot. And I think we all know that. Like when I do go for a run or a walk, like putting the shoes on and getting out the door can often be the hardest part. Or even for myself, going and attending that networking mixer, because I might be home and it might be raining, or I might be like, oh, I have cramps today, or I'm not feeling good. I can tell you 100% that after I do the thing, whether it's the walk, the run, the hike, the chatting with people, the connecting, I come home and I do feel so much better. I feel like I've gained so much and I feel soothed. I feel empowered. I feel great. So I put an exclamation point on everything you just said. And I hope women will feel that and be open to it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what you say, and that's kind of with the paddleboarding, what I think is so powerful too, is because I tell people in my paddleboarding classes all the time, your brain is always going to tell you you can't do something, right? Your brain, your body physiologically is wired to have the least amount of resistance as possible, right? I'm going to do the least amount of work so that I could just get through the day, right? So like you say, like getting yourself off the couch, really forcing yourself to that, because your brain will give you a million reasons of why you shouldn't do something or why you can't do something, right? I'm not going to go paddleboarding because I'm just going to fall right in. There's no way I can stand up. Well, I tell people, tell your brain, shut up. I know I'm capable, right? It's that empowering ourselves, getting out of our brains into our bodies and saying, I can do this. And then when you do, when I watch people stand up on their paddle boards and I'm just like, see, and the look of accomplishment on their faces, whether they're 6 or 62 and they're just like, look, I did it. It's absolutely amazing. So when and that's something I really, that's probably the good way to end it is, don't listen to your brain all the time, right? And that's with Wild Women's getting in your body, right? We talk about that, getting in your body, getting out of your head, just being, right? Instead of just worrying about how we look and what we're doing. And do I look stupid? Is everyone looking at me? And just being and doing, and don't worry about what your brain's saying and just feeling it. That's where that connection comes into play. Once you get your brain kind of gets out of the way there.
Yeah, yeah. And that's true. I tell people that even with the laughter yoga, because it's not what we think is normal, quote unquote. You know what I mean? It's like, it seems more normal to laugh at a joke where I'm asking you like, okay, follow me and do ho, ho, ha, ha. And part of your brain, if you're listening to that part, that one that wants to judge, oh, this looks silly. Oh, this isn't what I normally do. This is how I laugh. It's like, tell that part of your brain, like you said, be quiet and just try it and like listen to your body. And you're 100% right. Yes, our if we can get so caught up in that, and but we know we're powerful, and that's what we need to go with. Yeah, turn off the naysayer in our brain. So yeah, thank you. That is you're right. That's a great place to end, and I'll stop talking. But I want to thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing a little bit about you, your journey here, and all that you're doing to bring women together in a very powerful way.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a great opportunity here. And as always, I love speaking with you. You're such an awesome person, and I appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Oh gosh, well, thanks. No, thank you so much. And to my listeners, we've got right around the corner May. Of course, I know I say a lot of observances, and I tease about the observances because I think we need to do things obviously all year round, but we can't be worried about or thinking or focused on a million things. So I think these monthly observances do give us an opportunity maybe to learn things we wouldn't have otherwise. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. The first Sunday in May is World Laughter Day. So I will be talking probably a little bit about that and a little bit about mental wellness health fair that will be taking place in Wilkes-Barre on Saturday, May 4th, that I'll be part of, leading laughter yoga, doing stand-up comedy, all kinds of vendors, so that you can come out and maybe learn, and it's free, it's all free, learn a little bit about opportunities and resources to help you feed your soul and just get a few healthy, healing laughs. So I will be sharing more about that in the weeks to come. But thank you so much for listening today. Check out the show notes so that you can learn more about Wild Women NEPA and all the great events that are coming up. And as I always say, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.